What's up, you dirty motherfuckers? It's Ram Thorburn here, back with another MAGA Chud Reacts. So if you're not familiar with this channel, I mostly do political commentary, but I do occasionally react to songs if I find one that has good socio-political messaging that I can give some comment and context on. So if you're just looking for somebody to say, oh yeah, that's a dope bar, like this beat, that kind of thing, well, this is not going to be a reaction for you. I am going to break down and give the socio-political context to Tom's music here. And so we have Tom Macdonald, No Lives Matter, and Tom Macdonald always brings the fire. He always gives me something to talk about, so I'm excited to do a breakdown on this one. Let's go ahead and see what Tom is talking about.
Hip-hop diet is full of guys who cannot even rap. Media dividing us by colors, white or black.
Well, they're dividing us by a lot more than just colors, white or black. I mean, if you look at the way that our culture runs today, we're divided along every single line that they can possibly bifurcate us along. They divide us between race, they divide us between gender, they divide us between orientation. And a lot of this comes down to academia and postmodernist theory. And postmodernist theory is rooted, actually, in cultural Marxism, essentially. Cultural Marxism, and it essentially takes the idea of the proletariat and the bourgeoisie and converts it to oppressor and oppressed based on different cultural lines that can be drawn upon. So essentially, like, the blacks are the proletariats to the whites, the gays are the proletariats to the straights, and it creates this hierarchy of victimhood in which everybody then views himself through a monolithic coalition. And that is not ever going to unify a country, because you're going to have your people divided along every single different line that you possibly can. And this all comes out of academia. When it comes to race, it comes down to critical race theory, which is the brainchild of Harvard professor Derek Bell. And then, of course, you have all the gender theories, critical race theory, critical gender theories. You have like film theorist Simone Dubois, what's her name? Simone Dubois, or well, I don't know, some French name. I always forget. It's always hard to pronounce those names. But yeah, you have all these different theories, and they're almost always cooked up in academia. And we always thought that, hey, these kids are going to graduate, they're going to get a dose of the real world, they're going to get over everything that they learned in college. But that has not actually happened. What's happened is those people have gone out and they've gotten into the institutions and they've spread like a virus. And so all of these different critical theories that divide us have been put out, and it's infected the media to a point where we need to blow up the entire media. And I think mainstream media really is collapsing, but we'll get to more on that in a little bit, because I think Tom has a lot more to say before I get going there.
As white or black. If you believe in Jesus, these days Christians get attacked.
True.
If you don't hate police, then everybody thinks you're white. Everything's so connected. Black Lives Matter got so aggressive.
All right, well, hold on. I probably paused that too soon. I do pause a lot.
Lives Matter got so aggressive. White folks who agree can't support the message.
Yeah, and that's what he's saying. Everything is so connected, and that's because we have such a centralized authority at this point that we have, our media, our academia, all of our pillars of institutions are now controlled by the cultural left. So we have the media, we have labor, we have mostly government. I mean, if you look at Washington, D.C., it's 96% Democrat, or it's only 6% Republican. I guess there are maybe some independents there, but it's only 6% Republican. And you look at the monolithic nature of the ideology within all of our cultural institutions, and you can see how it all ends up connecting, because it all ends up working hand in hand. One hand washes the other. And he's talking about how Black Lives Matter gets so aggressive. That's because if you listen to the founders of Black Lives Matter, Patrisse Cullors and Alicia Garza, they say outright that they are trained Marxists, and Marxism is built on agitation of the cultural norms, and so they have to be aggressive in order to get their point across. And while Tom, no, what was that last part of the verse that he said there?
Agree can't support the message.
Yeah, black people that white people that agree can't support the message. And honestly, in a vacuum, I agree with the statement that Black Lives Matter. But the problem is that society doesn't exist in a vacuum, and we as a nation have worked for decades, I mean really centuries, starting with the Constitution and with the Bill of Rights and with the Declaration of Independence, to set forth a society that continues to grow better and become more inclusive. And when you start bifurcating along racial lines the way that Black Lives Matter does, it feels like a regression. It feels like a step backwards, because we had finally reached a point, I think, in society where really racism wasn't a very big problem. I mean, if you look at the 2000s, you didn't see much by way of hate crimes or racism, overt racism, anything like that. It seemed like people actually got along pretty well. But and then to go ahead and start saying, well, certain lives matter, and you start making issues about specific races when we had kind of gotten into that post-racist era as a culture. And I mean, even when Barack Obama was elected president, they said he is the post-racism president. And all Barack Obama ended up doing was stoking the flames of racism, because he was actually a believer in critical race theory. He was a student of Derek Bell, that Harvard professor who invented critical race theory. And then when he was teaching law in, Columbia University? I forget what university it was. Maybe it was University of Chicago. Wherever Barack Obama taught, he actually taught the teachings of Derek Bell, and he kept in touch with Derek Bell for a long time. I believe they actually still keep in touch today. So Obama was absolutely a student of critical race theory and did very, very little to actually, when I say did very, very little, he actually almost did the opposite in terms of actually fanning the flames of these critical theories that end up dividing us. And of course, we know that the media and all the other cultural institutions were just goo-goo over Obama. They were gaga for him. So a lot of that ended up just following suit. He never got questioned. So if he said something, it had to be right. And it kind of started setting everything onto a path towards this critical theory that we see undergirding our culture today.
Can't support the message, both sides go to war because they don't respect it. Our social climate from the global tension triggered total violence and a whole depression. We can unify and then I'll go against them, but we let them divide us with votes and elections.
Yeah, I mean, he says that we let them divide us with votes and elections. And the fact of the matter is that when it comes down to the right and the left today, it's really the right is kind of where they have been for a long time. And any social scientist worth their salt will tell you that. The right has barely shifted. The right tends to mostly be fairly centric. But what the left has done is they've used the changing of goalposts, the constant changing of goalposts to shift the Overton window to now where people who in the 1990s were considered liberal are now considered far right. And that doesn't really make much sense. It's the left that has moved so far away from the center, and they're trying to drag everybody else with them. But some people are like, no, we see this for what it is. We see it for the Marxist underpinnings that they are trying to push here, and that is not what America is supposed to be. It is the antithesis of America. So they're two entirely different ideological platforms, and they are informed by two entirely different worldviews. At the end of the day, there is no compromise between those worldviews. And it's the right are the ones, the conservatives, we're just trying to conserve the American way and the ideas of the Constitution, that all men are created equal, that everybody should have, everybody's equal under the law, equal application of the law, all of that. But you can't have that when you have this extreme leftist ideology that is infecting your cultural institutions and creating false narratives that are designed to divide people apart. We cannot compromise with them. There is no compromise between the right and the left anymore. And it's because, like I said, they are completely informed by entirely different worldviews. And on the right, we typically just want to be left alone. It's the left that is always demanding of everybody else. They demand that you get on board with their message. They demand that you get on board with their ideology. At this point, all politics are religious. And people don't often realize that, but all politics are religious. So conservatives and even classical liberals here in America, they are still informed by the Christian worldview. They're still informed by the Christian ethic, because that is what this nation was founded under. In fact, there's what's the law called? Godwin's law or something? Or something doctrine. God, I'm drawing a blank on it right now. But it's the idea that it's better that 10 guilty people go free than one innocent person face consequences. And that idea comes down to the biblical story of Lot, and how in Sodom and Gomorrah, God said, find me one just person and I'll spare the entire city. And so people don't understand how actually religiously rooted our values in Western civilization actually are. But when it comes to the left, Marxism is rooted in atheism. It's rooted in a absolute no religious, no spiritual understanding of the world. That's why they tend to operate with the whole idea that there are no more there as Vladimir Lenin himself said. Vladimir Lenin said, there are no morals in politics, only expedience. A scoundrel can be of use to us because he is a scoundrel. And so when you have a worldview like that, where it's just simply force of will, where it's simply just the amassing of power to exert over other people, there is no compromise with a society that is rooted in a Christian understanding that is spawned out of liberty and individualism. They simply cannot coexist. And, you know, at some point it's going to boil over, because there are people that believe in individualism. We're not going to take being put over by all these collectivists. And, you know, you saw just before the election, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they put out this video that talked about equity versus equality. And the idea, and first of all, they got the entire thing wrong. They said equality was everybody gets the same amount. Well, no, that's not equality. Equality in America is equality under the law. That means everybody is treated equally under the law. But in their little video, they showed two ropes come down from the top of a mountain, and there was a white person on a platform this high and a black person that was lower on a platform that high, and the ropes came down, and the white person was able to reach the ropes, but the black person wasn't. And so they said, well, equity means people get that extra boost, and then we can all end up at the same place. That was the end message. Well, nobody who says we all want to end up at the same place. We all have different visions. We all have different purposes. We all have different reasons for living, reasons for doing what we do. And some of them are going to be, some of them are going to be profitable. Some of them are not, but they're going to be spiritually and soulfully fulfilling. So we don't want to all be the same. We don't want to all be these gray like man dress wearing, shaved head, you know, everybody looking the same, everybody at the same place, everybody having the same thing. And that also goes to mention that we need suffering, we need struggling in our life, because that is what gives us meaning. It gives us something to overcome. It gives us that will to move on. And I think one of the big problems with society today is that people have no purpose because they have no struggle. You know, People here in America, they like to talk about the poor this, the poor that. The poor in America have a car, a flat screen TV, air conditioning. You know, they're still in the top 1% worldwide, and they have no context or understanding for how good they actually have it. Again, guys, I warned you, I go off on tangents on these, but, you know, it gives me stuff to talk about, and maybe it interests you. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you've already shut me off.
Fighters for votes and elections. Hey, the music we bump, all about shooting guns and doing drugs. Hey, whoa, the things that we want are promoted subliminally through the songs. Like, you need a fast car, you need designer clothes, you need a rap star to tell you to start popping pills, hit the blunt, and go live at the club till you're broke.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, a lot of entertainment and mass media entertainment, what they've done is they've placated us. It's the whole idea of bread and circuses. And you give them bread, you give them circuses, you know, you keep them fed and you keep them entertained, and then we can do whatever they want because they're so distracted they never see what we're doing. And what he was talking about before, how everything's all connected and how it all comes together, they're able to amass that amount of power and connect everything because we're not paying attention. Because we're paying attention to shit that does not matter. So, good on Tom for calling that out, man. Tom always crushes it.
Blunt and go live at the club till you're broke. It's all controlled by the elites. Put fake news all over our screens, convincing the right to go fight with the left and distract from the fact it's each other we need. Now,
I already explained a little bit. You know, I will take a little bit of umbrage with Tom on that line when he says convincing the right to go fight with the left. No, that doesn't actually happen. The right tends to just want to be left alone, as I said before. We just want to live our lives. We want to live peacefully. We don't want to fight. But at the end of the day, when you have the left that are going out in the streets, they're burning down private, you know, small businesses. They're burning down homes. They're mobbing people in their homes. There's a story of this guy, I believe it was in Seattle. I could be getting the city wrong. Don't quote me on the city. But he was sitting at home drinking a beer, and apparently he had like an American flag and a Trump flag hanging from his house. Next thing he knows, he's just sitting there drinking beer, watching TV. Next thing he knows, he's got an entire band of people, these Black Lives Matter and Antifa rioters, out there threatening to burn his house down. And he goes and just shows them that he has a shotgun, doesn't point at anybody, doesn't fire it, doesn't do anything like that. Next thing you know, the police come, and he's the one who gets arrested. So what we're actually seeing through all of this sheer force of will, this using the sheer force of will to amass absolute power, what we're seeing is the dissolution of the rule of law. We're seeing that people are no longer going to be treated equally under the law, because it's going to be a lot easier for police officers to, instead of deal with a mob, just arrest the one guy and just it'll be easier on us. But once you have that happening, then you absolutely have no protections under the law, and you start getting ideological implementations of the law. So you're either part of the party or you're not, and we're going to fuck you. So we've seen that multiple times over. I mean, we saw it with Kyle Rittenhouse, the Kenosha kid. You know, he was in all the riots. He was clearly trying to run away from people that were attacking him. He fired in self-defense, and now he's being charged with murder one. We saw it with the McCloskeys in Missouri, where Missouri has one of the strongest castle doctrines in the entire country, meaning that you can come out with your gun and defend your own property. And we had all the people had broken down. Black Lives Matter protesters had broken down the gates to their gated community. They were marching through. One of them clapped magazines in his face and said, "You're next." And then they get charged with felonies for standing outside with guns to protect their own home. And these people who broke down the gates of the gated community and marched through there and rioted and vandalized, they got no repercussions whatsoever. So it's an absolute ideological implementation of the rule of law, and that's what they want, because they don't actually want equality under the law. And that the whole thing about critical race theory, and which is one of the biggest things that undergirds Black Lives Matter, is this critical race theory, is that they're neo-segregationalists. They are absolutely regressive. They're regressionists. And we've seen that in Dearborn, Michigan, University of Michigan, Dearborn. They've set up they've set up different POC cafes and stuff like that. And then they had one that was a non-BIPOC, which is Blacks, Indigenous, or People of Colors cafe. So if you're non-Black, Indigenous, or person of color cafe, that's just a social justice way of saying a whites-only cafe. This sounds like Jim Crow South to me. But that's what these people are. They're neo-segregationists. They are the racists. Anti-racism, for all their sloganeering, they are absolutely built on utter lies. Anti-racism is built on racism. It's built on the idea that we can view the world through a racial lens, and that then you use Marxist redistribution to cure all the ills of the world and all the ills of these monolithic groups. Meanwhile, it takes into no account that you could have, some dirt poor, starving kid in Appalachia that is now having to pay reparations to a multimillionaire black kid. You know, and that's why we on the right, we're individualists, because we understand that you cannot create monoliths out of groups of people like that. Because we all have our own soul. We all have our own life. We all have our own purpose. And we all have our own positions in life. We all have our own place where we're at. We are not where we are because of our skin color. So, anyways, back to Tom Macdonald. Oh, yeah, I don't think I finished making my point on that last one there. I know I go off on so many tangents here. But the idea was that the thing that I was taking umbrage with Tom was that the right isn't out there to fight the left. The right wants to be left alone. The left is out there picking the fight, and the right's finally saying, "God damn it, are you really going to make me do this? Are you really going to make me grab my gun? Because I don't want to do this, but you're forcing my hand." So, sorry, run it back.
Divided by race and religion, segregated into teams. You're a white supremacist. If you're not, I guess you Antifa.
And again, that's the whole idea of intersectionality. You know, everybody is based on your group characteristics, you are somewhere on the hierarchy of power and oppression. And if you were on the powerful, then it's about dragging you down and taking you down a peg so that you're at the bottom. And then the people that were at the bottom are now at the top. It's really just a total inversion. And in the clusterfuck of the mix of power, the opportunists come in and they seize the power over fucking everybody. I actually have, for those of you who haven't checked out my channel, I did sort of like this 45-minute long special called A Very Un-American Revolution, where I talk about cultural Marxism and how it's been rooted in America for decades now. So if you haven't checked out my channel, you should probably go watch that, and you'll learn quite a bit. And I show a lot about how this is rooted back in Soviet influence back during the Soviet era, of course. And you should probably watch Yuri Bezmenov and how he talks about active measures and cultural subversion. And he when he came to America, he couldn't believe how successful it was here. How they had already demoralized most of American culture, and it was ripe to just be flipped into a cultural Marxism. And the thing about Marxism, it works through subversion, so you don't even realize that you're influenced by Marxism until it's too late. And even then, you may not even recognize it because it brainwashes you. It's really, really insidious stuff.
You're not, I guess you Antifa. Screaming from the rooftops, beat down better. Turn us on each other now, no lives matter. If we do what the news wants, blood gon' splatter.
That's interesting. If we do what the news want, blood's gonna splatter. And he's not wrong about that, because the news is, they have an old slogan in the news that's, if it bleeds, it leads, meaning that if it's violent, if it's tragic, if it's something that bleeds, then it's going to get views, it's going to get leads. So follow that. But what's interesting is that we see now with our media, through all of the riots, they stepped away from that old maxim of if it bleeds, it leads, and they called everything peaceful protests. They refused to cover the violence because it ideologically aligned with their worldview. And that's a very, very dangerous situation to be in, where you have all of the elites, all of the establishment, all of the power structure that line up so that you can literally have people going around burning down shops, beating people up, killing people, and they get arrested, and then they get released with no charges, like we were seeing in Portland. The DA was just not pressing charges against any of these people, and then the media was playing cover for them. That's a very, very scary situation. Especially when I start when you I was just talking about how if you're not part of that ideological in crowd, well, you're gonna get butt fucked. You're gonna get straight up butt fucked by the system. Not good. Not good, guys. Oh yeah, another thing, and a lot of these people, they come out in Antifa, they say that they're anti-fascist, but when you actually look at the economic structure of a fascist country, it very much resembles what they themselves are fighting for. Because in a fascist country, you have private ownership, but it's all public control. It's all public control. So the private companies have to serve the greater purpose of the state, and that's what we're seeing. That's exactly what we're seeing through the left here. We are seeing a fascistic economic power structure where, we see, come June, you can't buy a single product without it being wrapped in rainbow colors. All the major corporations, they jump on board with all of these far left Antifa-based critical theory movements, and it's all to serve the narrative. It's all to serve the established purpose. And the establishment, what they're going to do is, China's the model. That's what people need to understand. China is the model, and they have sort of this. It's like this bastard child of proto-fascist economics mixed with communist totalitarianism, and that is the model here. And all you have to do is look at the economic structure and how all of our cultural powerhouses absolutely endorse the Black Lives Matter. And if you aren't that, well, you are shunned. It's all to serve the new religion of intersectionality, and it really is a religion. I mean, they have acolytes and community organizers. I mean, they even cancel culture. That's their excommunication. It is really a religious cult that these people are in with this cult of intersectionality.
Freedom's dead. If you have an opinion, take it back. People hate the president. If you don't, then you trash.
Freedom essentially is dead at this point. I mean, our Constitution is Swiss cheese. Our Second Amendment rights are, I believe, shall not be infringed, is pretty clearly stated, yet there are so many gun laws on the books. I think it's 20,000 pages of gun laws on the books. That seems pretty steep for a very clear do not infringe in our Constitution. And now the Democrats and the left have, because they're essentially one and the same at this point, they have outsourced the dissolution of our First Amendment rights to private companies, which is what I was talking about the proto-fascistic economic model. So we have all of these big tech platforms that are censoring and silencing anybody who does not get on board and go along with the narrative. It's really, really disturbing stuff. But you can start to see how it all takes shape.
Then you trash. Indoctrinate the nation.
Oh yeah, and that's why I call these MAGA Chud. I'm a big Donald Trump supporter, is because I view him as a wrecking ball to this establishment that is creating all of this nonsense. It's funny because the left used to be the anti-establishment crowd, and the reason I'm a conservative and pro-Trumper is because I grew up as kind of like I had punk rock politics as a teenager and young adult. I was very anti-establishment. I considered myself to be on the left. But then when I started seeing the shift under Barack Obama, I started realizing, ooh, no, this is the establishment and what they're doing. This is not good. And so I shifted over to the right because it was about freedom, liberty, and prosperity. And shit, now I kind of forget where I was going with that. That's the problem with me going on all these tangents. Sometimes I forget where I was going. So, I guess yeah. Essentially, the point that I was trying to make is why I'm such a Donald Trump fan is that he represents an absolute wrecking ball. He's a bull in the china shop of the establishment elites, and they hate him for it. And there are so many just useless myrmidons that just listen to all the corporate media. And these people are on the left. The left used to be anti-establishment. You know, I remember. I'm old enough to remember when Bernie Sanders was railing against the millionaires and the billionaires, and they were loving it. And now it's the billionaire-owned corporate media that they just suck up and believe every word of. It's. I mean, that if that's not brainwashing, then I don't know what the fuck is.
Indoctrinate the nation using news and mainstream rap.
Yep, indoctrinate.
The government abuses us. It's all part of the plan. And it's so confusing.
Tom gets it. I think Tom knows exactly what the fuck I'm talking about here. I think he knows exactly what I'm talking about here. Wow, this is some of Tom Macdonald's best work. I got to give him that. You know, there's a couple things here and there that he says that I'm like, you know, but I get it. He's doing a song. He's making arguments for everybody, and not everything's going to line up with what I say. And fuck, who knows? I could be wrong about a goddamn lot of things. In fact, if you want to challenge me on some things, go ahead and drop some comments in there, and you know, good luck. But we can go at it. We can go toe to toe.
Black Lives Matter is a valuable movement, but all lives matter ain't racist or stupid. It's non-black humans who don't feel included.
Hold on, I gotta play that back a little bit. He was going a little fast there.
But all lives and it's so confusing. Black Lives Matter is a valuable movement, but all lives matter ain't racist or stupid. It's non-black humans who don't feel included.
Yeah, well, he's saying it's not black humans who don't feel included. It's not really I guess it is about that a little bit. It is about that a little bit because the whole idea is that we are supposed to be an inclusive society. And I thought it was the left that has been fighting for inclusivity. Yet then they turn around and they make very exclusive movements. And he's right, it is confusing. And it is confusing because the left does not have a coherent worldview. Because they are mostly opportunists who are looking for power. And they are driven by sheer force of will and no spiritual undergirding, that they don't really need coherency. In fact, it was Vladimir Lenin that once said, a lie told often enough becomes the truth. And that just goes to show that through sheer force of will, that's the only thing they see. And to use sheer force of will, you need power, and you need absolute power. But of course, we know that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Black humans who don't feel included. All colors fall under laws that govern the whole country, and we all suffer.
Exactly. All colors fall under the laws that govern the country, but that's what we're seeing a breakdown of. We're starting to see that is not actually happening. We're losing equality under the law, and it's being done along ideological lines, not along racial lines, or you know, sexual orientation lines or gender lines, whatever. In fact, no, we've actually never had equal representation under the law on gender lines. That has never been the case because women can commit the same crime as men, and they will get far less time. That's just a fact. And I'm not sitting here complaining about that, you know. I mean, I'm not really a huge men's rights guy. I mean, I do think they have some legitimate arguments, but I'm not going to sit here, you know, we need to protect our women, and, you know, we don't necessarily want them all in prison, you know, but I guess that's just the patriarchal misogynist in me trying to get down on, you know, get over on women, you know, wanting them to have less prison time, whatever. I'm so sick of all this shit. The culture war stuff is just, it's so grating.
To govern the whole country, and we all suffer. We're all broke and nobody recovers until we accept that we're all brothers.
Yeah, we're all broke. You know, at this point, what we're seeing now is we've been seeing this for a long time now, is the disillusion of the middle class and the working class. And you tend to be either living paycheck to paycheck or you're one of the elites. And a lot of that has to go down, or it goes down to international politics and free trade agreements. So one of the things that I'm really worried about if Joe Biden ends up being president is that he was a supporter of the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and that essentially allows free trade with China. And that means no tariffs on anything imported from China. But he's also a fan of a 39% corporate tax and a $15 minimum wage. So what the fuck do you think? What the fuck do you think companies are going to do if they're being charged 39% corporate tax rates and they have to pay their employees $15 an hour? But they can just go to China, use slave labor over there, because Joe Biden essentially endorses that. He calls China, they're not bad folks. They're not our competition, whatever he said. And he's bought by China. So these companies just move their factories and production over to China, create their stuff really cheap with slave labor, ship it over here at no extra cost for them outside of just shipping costs. And then who loses? We the people lose. The working class here in America loses. We have been extracted from by our political elites, by our corporate overlords. They have extracted our wealth by using these free trade agreements and shipping off all of our jobs to foreign countries that have no problem using slave labor and interning Uyghur Muslims into concentration camps that will make Nike basketball jerseys for goddamn 2 cents a day. Fuck these people. Fuck these people. And I can't believe how many people fall for this ruse. I cannot believe how many people have voted for Joe Biden. Of course, I think a lot of these votes are fraudulent. We're going to see how all this plays out. I don't want to make this an election video, though. I got plenty of those going already.
Until we accept that we're all brothers. Hey, the music we make, all about big booties and getting paid. Hey, whoa, we watch the news and it fills up our brains with violence and riots and race. Like this is a race war. You need to hate more. Get what you came for. You need some songs about Xanax and violence so you can escape more.
Hell, I think some of these people in Antifa and on the left, they actually need some of that Xanax. They need to escape this shit that has warped their minds into believing that America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, the one that has been the beacon for freedom all across the world. They think this is the most racist, evil, and oppressive state that's ever existed. I mean, you look at Hong Kong, and they're over there waving American flags, and then you come over here and you see Antifa waving communist Chinese flags. How about we trade our commies to China for the Hong Kong Chinese patriots? I'll take that any damn day. I'll make that trade like that.
So you can escape more. What a vicious cycle we can break away from. They control the culture, they control the paper. They're indoctrinating a whole generation till the patriots start to hate the nation.
No. Patriots will never hate the nation because we will always love the nation because the nation is the founding documents. The nation is the founding philosophy. The nation is the founding principles. Whatever the politics drive the country to be, that is not the nation. And we will never hate the nation. We will fight like hell to preserve the nation. We might hate the tentacles that are strangling our nation, but we will never hate the nation. Love you, Tom, but you got that one wrong.
Start to hate the nation. The music we love make us dumb and addicted. The news that we watch is brainwashing the children. The viruses, riots, and racist conditions ain't problems. They're symptoms of life in the system. Screaming.
Yes. Yes, Tom. It's what did he say though? Did he say there's no? Hold on. Let me backtrack that just a little bit. I think I might have missed something.
Addicted. The news that we watch is brainwashing the children. The viruses, riots, and racist conditions ain't problems. They're symptoms of life in the system. Screaming from the rooftops, beat down better. Turn us on each other now. No lives matter. If we do what the news wants, blood don't splatter. Turn us on each other till no lives matter. The music will make you dumb. The media makes you hate. And they control them both. There ain't no escape.
Wrong again, Tom. There is an escape. You are one of the escapes, Tom Macdonald. You absolutely are one of the escapes. And this is why, now, it is going to get tougher and tougher as social media cracks down on any sort of dissenting viewpoints. But there's always going to be other people that crop up, or other platforms that crop up. But it's going to be people listening to people like Tom Macdonald, listening to people like Burden, like Struggle Jennings, like Mises, some of these other people that are out there, and they're going against the narrative, and then getting your information and getting your news from independent political commentators on places like YouTube, people like me. So it is escapable. It is escapable, Tom, and you should know that because you yourself are one of the escapes. And so I say that with utmost respect. I say that with absolute passion for what you're doing, because I absolutely love what Tom Macdonald is doing with his career, and he is breaking that mold, and he is giving people that way out. He's opening up people's eyes, and I cannot give Tom Macdonald any more credit. So Tom, don't undersell yourself.
and they control them both. There ain't no escape. They put the world in a state of chaos. Economy crashing and massive layoffs. Black against white, or it's left versus right. Divide and conquer, and control is the payoff. Screaming from the rooftops, beat down better. Turn us on each other now, no lives matter. If we do what the news wants, blood gon' splatter. Turn us on each other till no lives matter.
All right, so that was a hell of a song. This is one of Tom Macdonald's best. This is Tom crushed it on this one. He really showed an understanding for how all of the power structures are lined up against we the people. I think he did a phenomenal job on it. I mean, of course, the beat was a banger. I mean, you know, fucking 16-year-old me with two 15-inch subwoofers in the back of my 1995 Ford Explorer would have loved this. That would have been, you know, that beat was fucking booming like thunder. But yeah, this was a really good job from Tom Macdonald. I hope you guys appreciated my commentary on this. You know, I do a different thing than most than most music reactions. But if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to me, hit that notification bell, because we all know it's voices like mine that are first to be taken out back in old Yeller by the folks at Big Tech. Also, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Parler, and also on mindsandpill.net, all at Ram Thorburn. And if I do happen to get kicked off of YouTube, which is going to be highly likely with some of the shit that I say on my channel, then you can also find me on BitChute and Rumble. And if you'd like to contribute to the channel, there are links to my Subscribe Star, Patreon, and PayPal down in the description below. Also, if you know of any other good music that you think I would be able to give good commentary to, always send it to me, because honestly, I don't have enough time to keep up with a lot of music that's coming out, and I'm always looking for new stuff to react to, but it's kind of got to be on topic, because I don't just sit there and listen to, you know, just like regular old music. You know, I like stuff that has socio-political commentary that I can give context to. So anyways, guys, thank you for watching, and as always, rev your engines, ride hard, and fight like hell.